Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video going to cover a topic for the 5 of you who still are into Helium and Solana. Just kidding, of course, but it is going to be about Helium. Got some big changes coming. Going to go over the migration date. We do have a migration date now for that Solana integration. Some news regarding the off-chain proof of coverage and what that means in terms of rewards. And we do have a new timeline for that Helium mobile release, right? So we'll cover that towards the end here. So if that sounds interesting, guys, stay tuned, all right? So let's get right to it. So first, let's start off with the price, right? So the last video I did was like a couple days right after Christmas. So give or take about 2 months ago. And we were at a pretty bad price point, right? So we're in the like 180 range around that time. Things have improved quite drastically, so we're now over $3, right? Ultimately, we've had a little pump the past few days, and I think it's because of this integration news, right? Actually, same with Solana, right? At the time we did the video, they were doing super bad. They were sub $10. They were $9 something cents. I know I got a lot of flack for it, for being bullish on it. A lot of people were, Solana's dead, it's over, get out of it, but I took advantage, right? It's a project that I'm into, that I've been into, that I participate in, right? It's one thing to be interested in it and invest in it, but it's another thing to actually be in that ecosystem, right? I've been using it for, I could say, well over a year now. I've purchased NFTs, been into the DeFi aspect. It's a good chain. I know it's had all this FUD with the downtime, et cetera, but they've made a lot of improvements, right? Things have changed since then, and it's continuing to improve, continue to expand. And it recently got tested a few weeks ago. I don't know if you guys remember that stupid little meme coin with Bonk. Was stupid or whatever, but it was a good stress test for the network, right? It was a huge airdrop, ton of sell pressure, ton of DeFi, a lot of activity at that time. And if anything, it was a very, very good test of the network and no issues, right? Not to say that there won't be issues in the future. I'm sure there's going to be hiccups, especially when this migration happens. Expect it, right? It's part of the process. It's growing pains. It's a huge deal, right? It's not just the flip of a switch kind of thing. It is a very big deal. It's going to take time. We're going to have issues. We're going to have issues with exchanges. So if you're thinking of selling or moving things around, right now might be a good time to do it because chances are we're going to see these changes happening, right? So it's part of the growing pains. So again, overall, Solana is doing good, which is good for the, we need it to do well also, right? We're on Solana now, so we need it to do well. If we were still at that $10 range or lower, things wouldn't be looking too good, right? But the fact that they made it through something this bad on top of the bear market, the bear market as a whole is already bad, but then I have that crazy crap ton of news and still come out of it, I'm bullish, right? So let's look at Helium as a whole. So on the IoT side, theoretically, they do have a few more hotspots, right? The last time I did it, it was a couple thousand difference. But what has changed is the amount that actually have beacons. So these are the numbers you want to look at more. Don't look at this number because that's not giving you an accurate number. Realistically, you want to look at these hotspots that have been awarded, hotspots that have been witnessed, and the hotspots that have beaconed. So the last time I did the video, it was right under 500,000. Okay, so it has gone down about 10%. It's down to 442,000, which is a significant drop, but it's because people are exiting the network. I know they are having issues with like the deny list and things of that sort, so there are issues going on there, but overall, network is about the same. It's chugging along. It's not increasing though, right? But it is also because of the bear market. Right, we've had this super bad narrative, a lot of bad news going on, but hopefully as things get better, things progress, more people will be jumping on, right? So now let's look at the big news, right? So we do have a date now for the integration with Solana. So it's going to be March 27th, okay? So that's going to be a big date. Again, if you do need to move anything around, you're going to want to do it before then because, again, it's going to be probably a period where a lot of exchanges are going to shut down movement in preparation for this, right? So keep that into consideration if you are thinking of making any moves, right? So we'll go over this blog real quick. The next era of the Helium network begins on March 27th. The network migration to the Solana blockchain and deployment of Oracle represents the most significant upgrade to the Helium network scalability and reliability. So after months of meticulous planning and technical development, the Helium Foundation is proud to formally propose March 27, 2023 as the migration date to the Solana blockchain. This upgrade will encompass all wallets, hotspots, and Helium network state and will take place over a 24-hour transition period commencing at approximately 10 a.m. Eastern. Okay? So the completion of the migration marks a new era for Helium network, enabling it to achieve greater scale and truly become a network of networks. Okay? Which what they're talking about is when it changes to, as we've seen now with the 5G, we have that mobile token. Eventually, fairly soon, I'm sure after this, we're going to start getting more info when we change over to that IoT token. So for those of you who have an IoT miner, which is the regular Helium miner, instead of earning HNT, it is going to switch over to IoT, right? I'm sure we'll get more news of this as this happens, especially once this migration happens, right? Because again, priority is on this migration and happening successfully, and I'm sure soon thereafter, possibly leading into it, we'll get more information there, right? As far as like earnings and such and things of that sort, right? So the completion of the migration marks a new era for the Helium network, enabling it to achieve greater scale and truly become a network. We just read that. So Solana has the speed and scale necessary to take on blockchain responsibility, while the Helium core developers and community can focus on building wireless protocols and enabling utility on these networks. So again, a big part of it is so that they don't have to focus on the blockchain. Okay, Helium, if you've been mining for a while, we know the chain wasn't the greatest. Okay, I know we talk smack about Solana, but Helium was way worse. When it would go down, it would go down. I mean, even initially, like when I got started, you were actually able to like beacon at any given moment. Could kind of test your antenna, like if you moved anything around, you're able to do that instantaneously. They had to get rid of a lot of that stuff because it was just congesting the network so bad, right? So it was pretty bad. It was pretty detrimental, and a lot of the resources were used up on that, right? But now that they don't have to worry about that, now they can focus specifically on what they're trying to do, right? Which is their decentralized wireless networks, right? So that's what that's encompassing there. So once completed, HNT will become natively compatible with other platforms within Solana's ecosystem, adding utility for HNT, mobile, and IoT token holders. So it does mention the IoT token here. And parallel to the migration of the network state of the Solana blockchain, the transition of proof of coverage and data transfer processing to oracles removes major scaling bottlenecks for both of these core functionalities. And that is another big change that actually just happened, right? It is now officially on off-chain proof of coverage, and it's oracles that are doing it now. Okay, the update rolled out the beginning of this month. Every manufacturer has been slowly rolling out that update. I know initially some of them were having issues, but for the most part, you didn't have to do anything. It should theoretically update on its own. And I know they've been updating. Some of the other manufacturers have been having slight issues, so it is going to be a work in progress. But for like mine, I have a minted, which is made by Rack, and it's been no issues, right? No downtime, and in fact, it's improved, right? We'll go over that here in a little bit. So we'll go over what off-chain proof of coverage is. Off-chain proof of coverage is a new way for IoT hotspots to participate in proof of coverage. Previously, proof of coverage challenges were created by validators and then delivered to hotspots as requests to beacon. So this process was random and unpredictable with small timescales. Okay, on average, a hotspot would expect to receive a challenge once every couple of days. And yes, just like it stated, it was super random. There'd be days where I would have 2, and there would be times where I'd go like 5-6 days without it, right? So it was very random, and that's a big part of a big chunk of your rewards war for doing that. So when you didn't get them, you kind of noticed it. And that's what leads to like these like crazy numbers every day. And it was really hard to like make accurate predictions of how much you were going to earn because it was so sporadic, right? There'd be days I would earn like 0.18 HNT, and there'd be other days where I would get like 0.65, right? It's very all over the place. Typically, was kind of in a cycle though. Typically, I would get one good day, one like 0.4, 0.5 day, and then 2 like 0.2 days, right? And it was constantly in that range. So overall, I would average about the same, about 0.35, 0.4 a day, right? But it was fairly sporadic. And this is with having a decent setup, right? I've heard even worse stories with people who, had the smaller antenna. They didn't have an external antenna, not the most optimized setup. It was even more sporadic for them, right? So let's continue. So what happens to Challenger rewards? Validators were previously awarded Challenger rewards for creating proof of coverage challenges. Under off-chain POC, these rewards are now redistributed to hotspots as part of the proof of coverage pool. This means the 0.85% of overall HNT rewards that went to the validators previously will now go to beaconing and witnessing. This makes rewards more reliable and day-to-day fluctuations should be smaller. Okay, and so far that has been the case, right? So now what's going to happen if you've looked at your rewards recently, they are smaller. Like what you're getting for witnesses and beacons, it is smaller, but it is more often, right? And that's the difference, okay? So why are oracles better for the network? Under on-chain POC, validators must validate all POC events, a resource-intensive process which prevents IoT hotspots on the Helium network from beaconing more than once every few days. Okay, and that was the main reason that it was so sporadic. So off-chain POC moves this responsibility to dedicated services called oracles, where the processing can be completed much more efficiently and at scale. By using oracles to do the processing, the Helium network can increase the beacon rate. Okay, so what this means again is more reliable amounts of like witnesses and beacons. Okay, I think the goal for them is to be able to beacon every 6 hours. So far, mine for the most part is almost there. I'm averaging 3, but it is consistent. I've been paying attention to the times and it is within 6 hours. So because I've only been getting the 3 though, it's been 6 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours. But it's consistently within the same time frame, like within an hour, right? So that is pretty interesting. Recently, the past few days, there were a couple days where I did get the 4, where it was every 6 hours. But overall, for the most part, it's been more closer to like 6, 6, 12, right? So 3 times a day, which is still pretty good. So let's look at it, right? So these are my earnings ultimately from the past few days. You can see looking at the 28-day chart, you can see previously how it was. And this is how it had been for the longest, where one good day, 2 down days, one good day, 2 down days, one good day, 2 down days. And that was pretty much where it has been at, right? Overall, I had been averaging about 0.35, between 0.35, 0.37, 0.4, somewhere in that range. Ultimately, though, you can see here, right? A lot of those dips have been gone, right? We did have a bigger day here, but overall, you can see here, like this has never happened. I had on the 10th, 11th, and 12th, I got 0.34 for 3 days. I've never, ever gotten the same amount of rewards multiple days in a row, right? Let alone like being so close together. It was 0.37. I think the day before this was 0.37, and then 0.34, 0.34, 0.34, 0.43, 0.34. And then ultimately it has been going up since then, right? Because I've been getting that extra beacon, right? So hopefully it stays at this range now, right? So now my average has been higher. So I'm not necessarily earning more, but the fact that I'm not dipping as much, right? So if we look at what it has been, right? I actually have been getting this 0.45, but it had been every couple of days. But now instead of it being so sporadic, it seems to be more consistent now. Hopefully that would be nice, right? If I do stay in this range, which right now that's what it's looking like, right? And that's with the 3 beacons. Hopefully I'm able to get a consistent 4th beacon, and that way it stays in this range, which would be nice, okay? So if you haven't looked at your miner recently, you may want to look, right? Or for those of you guys who have been thinking about getting one, you're now going to be able to get more accurate like insight as to whether or not it makes sense for you, right? Because you can look in your area, you can see if somebody's populated, if one's nearby, what theirs looks like, and you can get more accurate numbers as far as if it makes sense for you, right? So you can really see like, okay, if I get a similar setup to this guy, the same manufacturer, same antenna height, and I'm in the same situation where I don't have any obstructions, etc., then you'll have a better gauge of what you could potentially earn, right? Because like, for example, when I look at the ones around me, it's freaking all over the place, right? I happen to be one of the better earners, but because I probably have a more optimal setup. But like there's actually a guy in my hex down the street, and his is all over the place, right? So that way you can get a better gauge as we get more consistent rewards, okay? So that is the big benefit with that off-chain proof of coverage, and it's something you should be seeing now, right? Again, I know some of the manufacturers have been having issues, so hopefully those will get ironed out here in the near term. We can move on. The other thing that will happen also with this migration is, again, like I mentioned before, is with the switch to the IoT token. Okay, the rumor mill has been hearing, murmurs here and there on Twitter and Discord that we may possibly get an IoT airdrop. Okay, so what it's going to take into account, we don't know. If it's going to happen, we don't know, but they have been talking about it. Don't know what it's going to entail, or like what the criteria is going to be. Like, is it going to be based off your uptime, how much, HNT you have in your wallet? We don't know, but something to keep in mind. If you do have one, might be worthwhile to turn it back on if you've had it off just out of frustration. Because I know some of you guys, depending on your location and your setup, it's been garbage, right? So I do understand that, but something to keep in mind, right? So the other big change we've seen recently is with this 1663 initiative. Okay, so one of my biggest complaints in the other update video I did was the fact that they haven't been prioritizing the IoT side. Okay, what I've mentioned was that they kind of need like a killer app, something to kind of centralize everything, right? To have like a nice GUI, a dashboard to centralize all these sensors. That's part of the problem right now, is that there is a ton of manufacturers for different sensors, and there are a lot of sensors, but the problem is a lot of it are more like commercial applications, right? Some of them are going to be consumer friendly, like where we could benefit, like they have little leak detection sensors. They have little like tracking devices, like things for pets, things of that sort. So those are more consumer friendly. But for example, they have a lot more commercial things, like for farming uses, different, range of things, right? One example that came to mind was like they have little like parking sensors, like, you go through a parking garage. It's a basic little sensor, but it would encompass like a parking garage, right? So that would be more of a commercial use, something for the aspect. So what they're trying to do with this initiative, it seems, is that they would have a group of people like project managers and such. So like a corporation or a developer can reach out to them and, hey, I need this specific project. Can you do something for me? So I'm assuming they would let them know, okay, you need X amount of antennas. How many sensors are you looking at? And they would come up with a package for them, right? Including like a dashboard, et cetera, et cetera. And that way they could sell to these commercial teams, right? Whether it's a new building, sensors for that, et cetera, et cetera. This is a great use case for the IoT network, okay? And this way they can bring in more revenue, because that's one of the big things, is that because it's so cheap to use, right? We're not going to see a whole lot of gains there unless they make more commercial use out of it, which is what a lot of the sensors are geared towards anyway, right? So this way it does centralize that, and it does help those projects out, right? If people are looking for those use cases, people are interested, now it does give them that point of contact so they can help them plan it out, right? They can give them quotes. They can be like, okay, if you need this, you're going to need this amount of equipment. This is your quote. We'll set up a dashboard for you. This is how you use it, right? And that's what corporations want and need, right? They're not going to set up just randomly get an antenna off of Parley Labs and buy the sensor off of here. No, they want a complete package. They want a project manager to deal with, and this is what that's doing, right? So overall, I think it's bullish for the network. Something good, right? It's a new initiative that they're doing. I'm sure we'll hear more about it, and I'm sure we'll start hearing more partnerships. Okay, that's one of the things that they did say they were going to focus on, was bringing more corporate sponsorships, and I think this is going to be the biggest, way to get into that, right? So hopefully we do start hearing some contracts, some things going on. We'll get some good news on that storefront there. The other big news was regarding Helium Mobile. We do have dates. I haven't seen anything official, but they did have some kind of like a conference thing about a month ago. And the news that came out of it was sometime in May. So right now that's the current timeline for Helium Mobile as far as like the phone service to debut is in May. So far we still don't have official price points yet, but I'm sure leading up into it, we're going to start seeing more advertisements. We'll see them doing more. I'm sure we'll see some kind of conference or something leading into that debut, right? But right now, that's the current new timeline is May, right? So pretty exciting news there as well. So just wanted to give you guys that update. I know a lot of you guys aren't into Helium too much anymore, but super interesting concept to me. Still bullish on it, and I'll keep you guys updated, right? For those of you guys who are interested. So hopefully you got some value from the video, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, guys, and I am out.